This is the rocker, Keith Ramsey from Deep South Paranormal, and you're listening to Steve and Naomi on Into the Unknown Realm on DTM Wicked Radio.
Welcome into the unknown realm with your hosts, Steve and Naomi from STURS Paranormal. Take a journey with us into a world that few understand and even fewer dare to go. On your home for everything wicked at DTMWickedRadio.com. Welcome into the unknown realm. I am Naomi.
I'm Steve, and excited.
And we have a special guest with us tonight. Joining us, co-hosting.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, shucks, he says. I was going to say, is it now Quiet Eric?
Quiet Eric. Can you imagine
Censored
that?
Eric.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's good. I like that.
I like that too.
So welcome to the show with us, Eric. Thank you for joining us. Speak.
Ooh. Ooh. Thank you. Anytime. I like this. This is cool.
Tonight we have a pretty cool couple guests with us. They have a very intriguing story to tell us, actually several stories to tell us. But before we go into that, I want to make sure that we send our condolences to my friend Sherry, who lost her grandmother yesterday.
I actually knew her from high school.
Yeah, she was my one of my very best friends through high school, and unfortunately she lost her grandmother, and my heart wrenches for her because she actually lost her mom at a very, very young age. So
we're thinking of you, Sherry.
Yep, my heart goes out to you. Also, make sure this weekend you come down to Harrisville, Rhode Island.
That's Harrisville, Rhode Island.
To the Ocean State Paracon, where we are going to be along with a whole mecca of awesome paranormal people.
John Tobin's last lecture.
Is it?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Did you actually see that?
I
didn't
did,
see that.
and I actually posted it to my Facebook account, so go there. See it. I cannot wait. I will be there.
It is also a great event where you can see John Zappis, who is the haunted collector, Joe Chin.
Love that guy. Looks just like Wellington.
You also
Sorry.
You also get to see Andrea Perrin, who is the eldest daughter of the Perrin family that the movie The Conjuring was based on. All these people that are going to be there are amazing. Not only are the great speakers going to be there, but you're also going to get a whole bunch of other people that are going to be there that you can go from table to table to talk to them, check out what they have, their stories. And I love these things because we meet some amazing people.
Chris DeCesare.
Yeah.
Awesome individual. And if you haven't heard his story, go this weekend and listen to what this man's got to say.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to give him a hug.
And you're going to give him a hug.
His story is the, C2D1 story.
Yes. Awesome.
I got it right
there.
I always mess that up. Steve always has it, though. But it's only $5 to get in. It is both days. It's Saturday and Sunday. It's from noon to 7.
It's $5 each day, though.
Yes.
Clarify that.
Yeah, which is $10 for 2 days.
Doesn't break your wallet. Goes to a great cause.
I got to commend you on the math skills. Outstanding.
Thank you. I did go to York. You did go to Trace. So, yeah.
I went to Marshwood.
That was good. Yeah.
You didn't see me count, did you?
Anyways, these boys are going to bash on me tonight.
Hey, we are wearing, well, that's going to come out wrong, but we're wearing the same shorts.
Yes, not together.
Oh, man.
And I almost wore the white shirt.
You did?
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Twins.
But definitely come down to Harrisfield, Rhode Island this weekend. $10 for the whole weekend, $5 for each individual day if you can't make the other. It goes to Autism, right? The Autism Foundation. Autism
Society of Rhode Island.
That's what it goes to.
Yep, and it's put on by the great group Rise Up Paranormal and Ken DaCosta. Every year they do a great job. And
Steve Clark will be there. Come down and see him. Say hi.
He loves himself a lot.
Hey, he was on TV, the TV star from My Ghost Stories. You don't know who that is?
And if you can't go, you can always still donate.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. We have to get that link. He was going to give us that link to put on our page. So we'll have to get that very, very soon. Also, you'll have to make sure you tune in because we are going to be doing some live interviews as well with some of these great people. So make sure you stop in. Now that I'm done rambling.
Are you done?
Like I said earlier, we have some great guests on tonight. I've been looking forward to this show because their stories are very interesting. They've had the mecca of paranormal things happen to them, and I don't think the amount of time that we have can even cover all the stories that they have, but we sure are going to try.
Some of their stories are somewhat like what I experienced as well, so I'm a little interested to talk to them.
A little?
Yeah.
A lot of?
A lot.
A lot of?
Little.
Bring 'em on! Anyways, we'd like to welcome to the show Alta.
Yep.
And Chad Dillard. Welcome, you two.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello from the land of Gnats.
The land of gnats?
NASA. We're currently
NASA.
We're temporarily in Alabama, very temporary, and it's a location of NASA.
We were both wrong. I'm like, they're in Arizona. He's like, they're in Arkansas.
Arkansas, Little Rock.
I'm like, I don't
Almost
think they're
right.
in Arkansas.
Hey, we're in an A state somewhere.
Yeah, an A state.
We only had a few left, right?
Right. Yep.
Alaska.
I think that's it.
Alaska's a bit cold.
Yeah, sometimes I think that about New Hampshire, so.
Anyways.
I want to come to Rhode Island really bad. I really, really want to come to Rhode Island bad.
You should come up.
You should come this weekend. We can meet you in person.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful where they're going to have this Paracon, and you can definitely meet a whole bunch of very cool people.
It's an outdoor event, but they have all the speakers inside. It's gorgeous.
You should come.
Sounds wonderful, and we're gonna add it to our list of travels, and probably not this year, but we're heading that direction. I'm determined.
Well, write it down. Ocean State Paracon. They've had it 3 years in a row now. So.
And it's actually one of our most favorite events. So we loved it. Absolutely love it. So you guys have had a lot of crazy things happen to you, and a lot of just to listen to your story, which I had the pleasure of listening to your story through one of your other interviews, and it was just amazing. It was just like I couldn't stop listening to it, and anything that interrupted me, I'm like, oh, damn it, Steve, stop texting me.
But see, I was texting her because I was listening to your interview.
Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, I'm a little curious. You talk about how your marriage was arranged, and I would love to hear you explain to everybody why you think that became, how that happened.
Okay, actually, what it is that I feel what I feel I know is that Chad and I were what I always say an arranged union. We married a year after we were what I consider arranged. You know, the arrangement, as far as I'm concerned, was right from the get, and it was the circumstances, I'll try to frame it as quickly as I can, because it's just all so bizarre. But essentially it's 1990, and both of you correct, we were in Arkansas at the time. Little Rock, Arkansas. Right. I know. I mean, you're going to hear how right both of you, all of you are. Hi, Eric. I know that you're there also. Hi,
how you
Eric.
doing?
Wonderful. I'm so glad to have a chance to talk with all of you. Anyhow, it's Little Rock, Arkansas, 1990. I'm 33 years old at the time, never have been married, no kids, no interest either in marriage or children. I have what I call a very mysterious, when people ask about missing time, I've had a childhood of missing time. Essentially, my memories don't click in until I'm about somewhere between 8 and 9 years old. So all that before that is missing. I don't have any baby pictures of myself at all. My photos don't start of me until I'm about 2. I've never seen an original birth certificate. Now, to the other one who thought Arizona, I'm from Arizona originally. Told I'm born on a reservation in Arizona. I'm of mixed blood. But taken away from there, my mother left that area supposedly when I'm about 6 months old. And we traveled around the country a great deal. Now, again, back to the arrangement with Chad. In 1990, my mom is in Little Rock, Arkansas. She has somewhat become a self-made woman, and what I mean by that is she raised me predominantly alone with no other family members at all. I had a stepfather for about 10 years of my life, from about 5 to 15. But essentially, my mom was my family. She made sure that I knew of my native blood. I was raised with the tradition of, my mother's people, if you will, of the Nez Perce. I have full regalia. I'm raised as a traditional dancer. A lot of sacredness all involved in that, but essentially not raised with the people. So my mom ends up in Arkansas, and she starts college late in life. She's about 40 when she begins college. She happened to, and this was in the 70s, she happened to have, her interest was law and social work, and she was always fighting for the underdog. But she had a very mysterious past as well. But anyhow, one of my mom's law professors for a semester happened to be Bill Clinton, who at the time was Attorney General, then went on to become governor, and then, as we all know, became president. I was about 20 years old when all this was happening, so still very naive, but waking up very quickly to sort of how the world, I feel, truly operates. My mom, as I said, a self-made woman, and because of that, she was generally never challenged by many things that she ever said. So it so happens that one of these comments that my mom would say to very few people, but she was consistent, is that when I'm about 6 months old, it's somewhere between, I'm born in 1957, somewhere between 57 and 58. She claims that she's driving across a desert. I don't know where this desert is. I don't know any more than what I'm about to say to you. And that so that would have made me about 6 months old as a baby. And she claims that it's daytime and that most of the time she would say a metallic craft. I think there was a time or two she may have used the word UFO. But, my memory is a metallic craft came out of the sky, landed on the highway or on the road, and stopped her from driving. So a very bizarre statement that I heard a few times in my life. My mom has since crossed over, so she's not physically here for me to ask any of these questions from. So anyhow, she's making a life for herself in Arkansas, and in doing so, I'm coming in and out of Arkansas for those 13 years prior to meeting Chad. So I'm leaving the state periodically, and I'm coming back. Lots of changes are happening in the state, but predominantly, it's about, in 1990 about 400,000, I think, somewhere in that range population. My mom and I I probably was coming home too often, and she would have probably been happier if I'd have, landed somewhere and just been happy in my life, but I just was really struggling. And with all the mystery and not having answers and not feeling that I had anywhere to turn to get answers. I took a job. I had a medical profession in my past. I really didn't want to do hands-on medical work any longer, so I took a position in a job that I really disliked almost the moment that I accepted it, and that was working in a medical equipment company, selling medical equipment. I'm not good with machines anyhow. I'm a people person, so Mom always said you got to be smarter than the machine, and I figured out real quick that me and these machines weren't going to get along very well. But it seemed to be used as the opportunity for the meeting of Chad. I'm there on that job only a couple of days. It happens to be Valentine's, so now we're on Valentine's Day 1990. I'm in a real foul mood. I hate this job. I really hate my life, and I don't want to be in Arkansas. I don't know where I want to be, but I just need a change. And I happened to be staying with my mom at that time. Now, I had lived in places like Southern California, Oklahoma, Kansas City, but this happened to be a time that I'm back in Arkansas staying with my mom. The guy that I worked with is named David. He was a young new father. He couldn't stand the idea that I didn't have a date for Valentine's. So he made up his mind he was going to see to it that I did. He makes a phone call in front of me against my wishes to arrange a blind date for me. Well, I didn't want the blind date, but then I was also curious. They say it's our prerogative. It's a girl's prerogative to change her mind. So as David is having this conversation with this guy on the phone, I can tell the guy is interested, but the guy makes it clear that he can't make the date because he's got to work that evening. Now I'm real upset because it seems like I can't even get a blind date.
You poor thing.
Right? Yeah, right? And I've seen a lot uglier out there at the time, so I'm just not getting it. So I decided to do this. Is extremely out of character for me. I decided to get off work around 5-ish. It was that 8 to 5 thing. And I didn't want to be home and be around my mom. And so these emotions were driving me to arrange for this, what I feel is the arrangement, which is why I'm, taking the time to kind of explain this. Mm-hmm. What ends up happening is I get home very quickly, change my clothes out of my, high heels and suit that I was wearing, whatever, and put myself in very comfortable clothes, my jeans, my tennis shoes. And out the door I went before I had to see my mom. Once I get in my car, I realize this is so out of character, I don't even know where I'm going to go. I don't even know what I'm going to do. And then I start to panic a little bit because it's just not something I could ever really remember ever doing, going someplace to have a drink by myself. So I end up choosing a location that's very close to my mom's home, and it's in an old neighborhood, and it's residential, purely residential. I don't ever remember seeing this place before, and the short story on that is to this day I'm convinced that place isn't even real. But it's almost like it seems like a movie setting to me as I'm repeating this to you. It's tiny. It looks like a little Irish pub, so it looks friendly enough. Yeah, when I say tiny, the parking lot, what I can remember seems barely large enough to even have large enough for my car to park in. I walk inside this place, and it was just perfect to order for what I needed for my nerves. And it was tiny, small, with just an old bar, a couple bar stools, a pool table, and I think maybe a little table and a chair. There was not a soul in this place. I didn't even see anybody behind the bar. In short order, yeah.
I like those kind of bars.
You like those kind?
Yeah, where you can serve yourself.
Karaoke.
You can serve yourself at those kind of bars when no one's behind the bar.
Yeah, right. And no karaoke. But I know. And this, like I said, this is the creepiness of it, is that it's like just made to order like a bad movie. I've said this before when being interviewed. It's like a bad movie, and I would think that I could write a better script. But this little old grandma-looking woman comes around the corner from back in her wherever she came from that was, fluffy and short, white, curly hair with rosy cheeks and just what I needed to see to, calm my nerves of being in this weird little building. So I remember her serving me a beer on draft. At the same time that she serves me this, beer on draft, the door opens up, into the place. And again, it's still light enough outside. There's still, because it's probably 6-ish p.m. And in the South, it stays light, fairly late. What I do remember very clearly is when the door opens up, these two men walk in, and it seems like they were highlighted with light. Not like they were glowing, but it's just, again, it was, perfect sunlight in my eyes, whatever. And these two guys walk in this place and just didn't take a brain surge, and they were as out of place as I knew I was. They were both, one was very blonde and one was very dark-haired. They seemed to be both relatively the same height, somewhere in the same height range.
I'm like picturing a Western movie, where the doors flop open and
that's doing the spaghetti Western song in the background. Yeah, like that yeah, like the
Chad, were you the cowboy that came in?
Yeah, right.
She said good looking.
Aww. Yeah, horrible. But that's, again, the creepiness of this is that these two guys were what I consider looking like male models. They were extremely attractive, and they were well-dressed in a casual but expensive way. One of them, the blonde, informed me that he was the pilot for the dark-haired guy. Now, again, just like a really bad movie, a private pilot, I mean, we're in an old neighborhood, a gazillion miles away from an airport, in some dingy, like Tad's saying, way on the other side of the city, in some little Irish pub looking craziness. And so, just in itself, these men that I'm not sure what they were, other than extremely attractive. But what was also interesting is that I had no interest in them, which is, I like handsome men and well-dressed.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Right. Like, you understand. But essentially, I very much remember not having no interest at all in these guys. In short order, they wanted to know if there was anything else happening in this city, which told me, that they weren't from that city. And so this is, again, where it gets real sketchy. I clearly have no memory of myself and these, say, men with question marks, getting from that location to the next destination. I have no memory of that. So that's missing. Now, I don't remember even drinking that beer in that little whatever place this was I was in. So, so be it, whatever. The fact is I don't remember from that point to the next location. But the next location happens to be a huge sports bar that's in the center of kind of in the middle of the city. Well, I'd never been there before, but this is the place that I understood that's where we were to go to. And the only thing that I could rationalize that I would make that decision is because it was a big sports bar. Valentine's knew it would be packed. And also the guy that owned it, my mother was a environmental codes inspector for the city, a housing inspector, premise inspector at times. She had a lot of positions, and she knew a lot of people, and a lot of people knew her. And so I knew that the man who owned this location was in my mom's territory, if you will, and I thought, something conscious that, well, at least I should be safe. And so that's the only thing that made sense to me as to why I would end up going to a place I'd never been to before. So we get to this location. Again, I have no memory of getting there. I do know, though, that, again, in short order, I made a phone call to a girlfriend of mine who I knew lived very close to this location. I knew she was single, and she had no children either. And so when I called her, I found out she was free for Valentine's, and I said, well, come on over. And so she shows up, and apparently I just decided as soon as she got there that I didn't want to visit with any of them. None of this is my character, none of this that I'm describing. I leave the three of them, these two men and my girlfriend, alone on one side of this sports bar and move to the other side and all by myself and just go pout. And in this kind of state of mind, very sad, cloudy, nothing seemed okay to me. I sat up at that bar for probably, I'm so lost on time, except what I can tell you is that before midnight on Valentine's, I want to say it's probably somewhere between 11 and 12 on Valentine's, all of a sudden I'm looking down at the floor because I just don't even want to look around me. This place is packed. I don't remember those men any longer, don't remember seeing my girlfriend any longer, but the next thing I know is somebody is asking me if I want to play pinball. Well, I hate pinball, and I was in the worst mood, and I was going to be really nasty, but by the time I looked at this little person's face, they were cute, and they had a sweet smile and pretty blue eyes, and I started getting over myself very quickly. We went over, we started playing pinball, and in essence discovered that Chad was that blind date that didn't happen, that ended up happening. He ends up that night coming to a bar he'd never been to before either. So that's what I mean by the arrangement, is that something, being something, an unseen hand seemed very determined that Chad and I were going to meet. I'll move forward a little bit here because Chad really does know how to speak, and he's got a great voice, and he's got a great story that honestly, I swear. But I will say this, that within 24 hours of meeting Chad, under these, what I consider very, people call it synchronistic. I don't know. What are the odds? I call everything high strangeness. But as I said, within 24 hours of meeting, we discover from Chad's mom that his grandfather, who has since passed, I never had a chance to meet him physically, that the grandfather's birth name is Alta, the same as mine, and that his last name is Duncan, and that happens to be my mom's name. So to wind that all off and put a bow around it, I'll say to you that my understanding of myself and my DNA is that I'm Indian and Caucasian out of Arizona. Told I'm from a reservation. Chad is DNA, all Caucasian, out of Arkansas. I got no Arkansas family in my bloodline that I'm aware of, and Chad's got no Indian in his. So I've never heard my name before, and I've heard it before, but I've never heard of a man with my name, and it's first and last name. So
how odd.
I just made sure that within a year of when we discovered that we were going to stick together and be together, and married a year later, first thing I asked of Chad was making sure, because he was, again, 10 years younger than I am, Chad, you know that there'll never be any children. I have no desire. And he seemed happy with that decision. So we've got puppies. Mm-hmm. Our 24th anniversary is this week, and we've got puppies.
That's definitely children. Now, you guys had a very cool experience. Well, I guess some might call it cool.
It's cool.
It's cool.
And was it in Louisiana?
Asta.
Where you guys, it was yourselves and your friend Jacqueline, when you guys had gone out.
I wouldn't know if I'd call that a cool experience. That would be pretty freaky. I thought you were talking about the UFO sighting.
You know, the Hammond out in Louisiana. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Right. Well, I'll have Chad. We'll move us from 1990. Now we're in 1995, and Chad and I have just basically moved to Louisiana.
Yeah, we moved to Louisiana. We're down around the Hammond, Louisiana area. We're going into town in one evening for dinner, and you know it was about this time of night probably, and you know sun going down, but you know it was still pretty light, and we come around this group of trees, and there's this Walmart Supercenter there, you know, with the big parking lot and all that. And we kind of look up in the sky. It's over on the right-hand side of the road. And we come around, and as soon as we get around this group of trees, we look up in the air, and there's this craft. It was flat. It was rectangle, but it wasn't as wide in the front as it was in the back. You know, it was kind of almost like a obelisk, or not monolithic, maybe. And moving very slow, low to the ground, because this thing was huge. It was bigger than the Super Center and the parking lot and all that combined. I mean, I've never been up against a battleship, but I'm sure, you know, like our ocean battleship. But I would say it was something like that size. So
I mean, when you guys see this, I mean, what is the first thing that goes through your mind?
It was incomprehensible. I just couldn't comprehend it.
And I'll jump in and say that I liken it to my brain exploded, because I'll mention now, had absolutely no interest whatsoever in space or science fiction or anything of that nature. When my mom would make these statements throughout my life growing up about craft, UFOs, what have you, I didn't hear her. And so when this happened to us, my brain exploded. I looked, I saw, I turned my head away immediately. My head flipped on my shoulders almost. Thank God it didn't spin completely around. And I looked directly at Chad, like, Chad, you better look at me and tell me that's not happening. And I could see in Chad's, I could see in Chad's face it was happening. We never said a word. Chad's eyes went back to the road. My head went straight ahead. And as Chad has often said, we never spoke about it. And our analogy is, if we don't look at it, it won't see us.
Was there any noise or like a humming or lights flashing or anything like that?
No noise. There were some lights, but they weren't flashing. They were just white lights. There were like 2 or 3 in the front and 3 or 4 in the back.
Yeah. To add to this a little bit, I had an experience with a UFO back in '97, and the reason why I sort of interjected is because it's almost identical to what you guys are describing. I ended up seeing a large triangle craft, which was very low to the ground. I would say maybe 1,000 feet below the cloud level. Thing was about the size of a Supercenter Walmart, if not bigger. And what I thought was very odd about it is, at first I thought it was actually the lights of a baseball game for, a nighttime game, but then I realized there was no field over there. This thing pivoted, went right across the top of me, very slow, and I could still hear the crickets chirping.
Yeah.
Really?
And to think that something that massive is actually just floating above your head and not making a sound, it's incredible when it happens. So
was that maybe it's the other Steve.
That was in Dover, New Hampshire.
That side over near Pease, right?
That was me. At the end of Pease runway.
Ironically, by Walmart too.
Yeah, this thing had a total of 6 lights. So like if you have a pool rack, there would be 3 balls and then 2 balls and then 1. That's how the lights were set up. So no matter how this thing pivoted, the lights were in the same configuration. So I just thought that was neat, sort of like yes.
I mean, it feels like finding family to hear you. Is this Steve?
This is Steve, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just wonderful to hear you, Steve. It's what Chad and I really live for. And if we may, Chad's wanting to share with you about his dad.
Yeah,
definitely.
When I reunited with my father a few years after this was in 2001. I get my dad, and we're sitting there talking, and my stepmom says, in 2000 we went down to Cancun for the Millennium, and they went down to watch the fireworks down on the beach that evening. They figured out that the lights from the motel was just really messing up the show, so they moved up the cove, and they set their chairs up underneath this, I guess, Temple of the Puma. They sit down, and they hear this big, huge cat scream. So that freaks them out. Then they decide to pay attention to the fireworks. They look up, and they said as the fireworks were going off, they could see this craft in the sky. And they said it sounded exactly like what we saw above the Walmart. Now, they saw theirs above the temple in Cancun. I get to see mine above the Walmart in Louisiana.
Doesn't seem fair, does it?
No.
Life's not everything.
Nice.
I guess I got to see it, right? That's what counts?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, if it's anything like the one I saw, it's unforgettable. You'll never forget it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to be the because I've never been able to shake 1990, the arrangement. That's not something that's ever left me. I don't feel that it's ever worked on Chad like it certainly has me. And I've never gotten any answers to this day as to the grandfather, how the grandfather ended up with this name, and just all this mystery, if you will. But it absolutely. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said definitely a unique name.
Right. And, it just all seemed to be priming Chad and I for then what happens to us in 97, where it's not just Chad and I, and it's not his father and stepmother alone in the family. It's somebody who is not related to us, that, has no familia. She's not family in any way married into or blood related. She is a friend and coworker,
right.
My manager, and essentially a total stranger that gets taken with Chad and I, so that now she had the most unbelievable experience prior to us. What I say, the way I refer to this is we were taken. The 3 of us were taken. People call it abducted or what have you. I try to stay consistent. But if I may add, because Jacqueline has given Chad and I permission to speak on her behalf, and I know time is short, but we really love the opportunity for people to hear all the dynamics, because Chad and I are not a breeding program. We've had lots of years. I've had a lot of years to try to process all that's happening to us, because it's still happening to us in one form or another. It doesn't just stop. And everybody says, they're making babies and hybrid programs and so on and so forth. Well, I'm not saying that's not true. I can only say, though, that Chad and I knew from, 24 years ago there would be no children. So, but essentially, Jacqueline, this stranger, she's only a couple months new into our lives, in friendship and co-working. She has an experience with a young man just probably days before the 3 of us were taken off of that corner. And in her experience, it was shape-shifting. And it's like something you hear out of Skinwalkers, you know, territory where I come from, out in the wild, wild west.
Mhm.
And you know, the Indian lore that I come from. So Jacqueline is half Lithuanian and half Sicilian. Tall, slender, long blonde hair, a very happy soul, very straightforward, no drama queen whatsoever. She's 24 years old at the time. She decides she doesn't want to see a guy that she'd been seeing just very briefly. The day she decides to tell this guy she doesn't want to see him any longer, but, you know, let's be friends, she invites him over to her house. It's daytime. She stays out on her porch. She essentially kind of breaks up with him on the porch. He's only just a few inches in front of her face. His name is Will. I always thought of him as Dark Boy. He had long, dark, very cute, long, dark hair, but he was her opposite. She says he gets so emotional as she's breaking up with him or, you know, telling him she wants to see other people, whatever. She said that he flips out, like, in front of her face, and she said he turns into a wolf. A wolf.
Wow.
Now, that's just mind-blowing to me because of who's telling me this. If I'm hearing this out of somebody else, I'm thinking, you need to have another drink or another drug or whatever. It helps you have that kind of fun. But this is our Jacqueline, and, you know, we know better. She said that she knows what she saw. She said she turned her head away in shock, just like I did when I saw that massive floating city. She said, so I understood when she said that she was telling the truth. And she said when she looked back and when she turned her head back, he shifted a second time. She said when he did it the second time, she said she called him on it. She said, you just turned into, cleaning up the language, she used the word, you just turned into an effing wolf, you know, in this very dramatic tone. And she said that he looked startled. And his confirmation was, you saw that. So this just happens right before the three of us then have happened to us what happened. So, you know, using that as the preface to move us into 97, Chad and I have moved to the French Quarter now of New Orleans, the same year that we saw that massive crash in Hammond. It's still 95, somewhere like moving from 95 to 96 now. We lived in New Orleans learning a great deal about a very, what I jumped at mystical madness. The French Quarter is insane. It's an amazing, crazy. Yeah. You know,
the boys are like shaking their heads. Yeah. Never been there.
Right.
I have.
Yep.
You know, so Chad and I jumped in head first, and it's sink or swim, and we're dealing with every kind of ghosty, every kind of time slip, every kind of you can imagine. Plus
Voodoo.
Plus the human factor, you know, of New Orleans, of French Quarter. So, you know, a whole lot to all of that with the ghosties and voodoo temples and voodoo priestesses and just craziness. To now we're into 97. Chad and I live just a couple blocks off of Bourbon Street, the famous Bourbon Street, right in the heart of the quarter. We have worked our way up very hard, but we've made it, if you will. I have just been written about in a book about New Orleans. That's, you know, unheard of. And Chad is doing really well for himself, and we're trying to kind of entrepreneur ourselves as well, and we were making it. I'm now about to turn 40 years old. I start making the prediction long ahead. I can't wait until I'm 40. I just can't wait, you know, and I'll have Chad pick that up because I don't really remember doing that, but Chad remembers it very clearly.
Yeah, she, you know, and it just really kind of stood out because no female, no woman, no lady
gets excited about 40.
Yeah, gets excited about
29
40.
again.
Yeah, 29.
That's right.
You know.
So essentially, I'll just jump in and then move it very fast because Chad's got an amazing story to share that I just don't want to run out of time with. my 40th birthday comes in May. My mother passes on my 40th birthday to the minute I'm born.
Wow.
That's right.
Crazy.
So, that's right. And by stating that to you, I'd also like to preface, because I've had nothing but time to try to understand what is not almost comprehensible. But the fact that Jacqueline was involved in being taken with Chad and I helped me understand I wasn't crazy, that I didn't make any of this up, that I wasn't so traumatized over my mother's death that I essentially created this, because there was this third person involved. If Jacqueline would not have been involved in that being taken with Chad and I feel that you'd never have heard from us. We'd stay silent because I would have never come out. We'd have never been public if it had just been him and I. But essentially this outsider, if you will, was very much involved in this very intimate and insane, bizarre experience with us. So in 1997, my mom dies 3 months later. It's September, and, I'm in deep grief, but I'm having to go through the motions of living. And Jacqueline is a new hire in a very exclusive salon that I worked in. She'd only been there a couple of months. As I said, she's 24 at the time. Chad's 30, and I've just turned 40. Jacqueline asked if I wanted to go out and have dinner and drinks with her in the quarter. I agreed to it. I said, let's call Chad. We only lived a couple of blocks from our shop. I knew he'd want to join in. Chad loves the girls, and the girls love Chad. And so, he puts it over to the shop. In essence, our night begins around 9:30 p.m. We step outside of our shop. We're going to cover the quarter. We don't have a agenda. We're just going to, mosey across the quarter until we land wherever we land. I'll say this, and then we'll have Chad pick this up. I know within a block of us starting that night that something is weird. And what I mean by that is the quarter's strange anyway, but when you live there, you know the rhythm of the quarter. And the rhythm was completely off. And what I mean by that is there were no people moving about on the streets. And even in slow months, there's always people. There were stragglers. There were a few people. But I hardly remember anybody. And I just knew that the vibration felt weird. I had no idea what was going on. I just knew it felt Twilight-y zone-y. That's my description of it. And then, Chad, if you'll...
To the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it was just, very strange.
And then go ahead and move it to the...
Yeah, we go to... we go to a couple of different places, and the first place we stop at, we go in, and the only person there is the night manager, and I used to work with him. So he was a Mardi Gras Indian. He wanted to, and he knew that Alto was Native American, so he took us up, showed us his regalia. We said hi. I really didn't, we didn't stay for drinks or anything. There was no band. We move on, and finally this happens a couple of different times where, there's nobody there except the bartender or a manager. So it was just very strange.
Our night, I'll just kind of jump back in and try to get us to this place of where Chad finally gets regression to get the full story as far as what happened to him, and he thinks Jacqueline that night. It's probably, all three of us seem to collectively remember around 11-ish, so you can do with that as you will. 11, 11:30, somewhere in that time frame. So we've only been out there about an hour and a half. We've had nothing to drink and no drugs. We're all on foot. And I might add also there's nobody around to drug us, because that certainly has been suggested many times. I'm so bored, all I keep saying is I just want to go home. I just want to go home, and I'm so bored I don't even want to walk home, which is only 20 blocks away. I want to get a cab and hurry and get home, because I'm just over it. Chad and I, our last memory is sitting on a stoop on the side of a building, of a corner. Jacqueline is just a few feet away. And as I said, that's the last thing the three of us remember. The next thing I know is it's the next day, it's daylight, and I'm sitting cross-legged Indian style in my living room, rubbing my arms. And as I've said before, I didn't wake up, my eyes popped open. Now, just to capsulize that, try to imagine the kind of trauma. I'm in such emotional trauma because I'm also the only one, apparently, out of the three of us, lucky me, who came back with memory of what I call the in-between experience. I have no memory of coming off that street corner, and I have no memory whatsoever of getting home. But I have a very distinct memory of the in-between. Chad, just again for time's sake, he has no memory at all. Last thing Chad remembers is on that corner, just, me saying, I just want to go home.
And he woke up in his bed, right?
Right. Thank God Chad woke up in the bed about an hour after I came to. That's when we discover. Now, I've discovered in the meantime that there's something now in my upper arm. I've sent pictures of x-rays of my upper arm. There's an object that looks very mundane on those x-rays, but there's nothing mundane about it. It seems to change shape. I can't prove that. It's just, it seems to change shape. It absolutely moves. As I've said before, thank God I can't feel it moving, or I would have probably done myself in long ago. But it clearly will move where, what I mean by that is it's just underneath the top layer of skin. So it's very evident to sight, if it's pushed against, the skin's pushed against it, it's very evident to sight and very evident to touch.
Now, for our listeners, we posted some of these pictures on our Facebook page. If you want to reference them, Steve actually posted them, which are pictures that you guys had shared with us, and we put them on the page. So while you're talking about your story, they can check those out on those pages for our Into the Unknown Realm page. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, thank all of you for your help and helping people to see kind of what we're trying to describe here. So what I say by this object moving is that it'll push against the skin like a big bug bite, or it will seem to bury itself all the way down to the bone. I'm a fairly good-sized girl with pretty good-sized biceps, and that's a long distance to travel. But it clearly does. Sorry?
Obviously you've been to the doctor because you supplied x-ray pictures to us. What do the doctors say it is? Have they examined this or tried to remove this? Or, what do they think it is?
So that story in itself is so freaking insane that very seldom do we ever get an opportunity, nor are we asked about it. And I think that the couple of times Chad and I have tried to share that, we were asked to speak one time in public for a group, and I very clearly remember when I said what I'm about to tell you, with Chad and I both standing there, to this crowd that were there to listen to what was happening to us, a local judge stood up and all but called me a liar. Now, call me a liar. We don't care. Just call us. We don't care at this stage what people think about. We just appreciate the opportunity to try to let folks that are interested in hearing what's happening to us, that it is happening. What happened was the doctor, we're in Alabama at this point. We moved to Alabama in 2001. Chad's father's in the locomotive business here. Chad works for his dad part-time. He was full-time for a long time. We've had a change of life, but we're here now, and Chad very much is involved in his dad's locomotive business. We got involved via I want to be careful here because we're not here to out anybody. There was a UFO group that arranged me and Thad to meet a medical doctor to get these x-rays. He lives in a small town, tiny town, a few hours away from where we're at. This doctor asked for this opportunity. Now, this group provided him, me. All that I can tell you is we can't even wrap our brain around what has happened, but this is what happened to us. We show up at this doctor's office. He made sure that we show up after hours. He was going to keep a skeleton staff on, just like one or two of his radiologists. He didn't want word out. This was something that was all kind of QT. It was all on the down low, right? So this UFO woman never told Chad and I that she was bringing two other couples with her and all of their tripods, camera equipment, and all that I could tell. Right. So, and we've driven a couple hours, so now we're in shock because we're going to be on show. Nobody's asked us. That's not our intention. We're not media hogs, no matter what anyone thinks. I need x-rays. So, so happens that none of that panned out for these people. Boy, did they leave disappointed because something else is in control of this. This doctor, he first spoke to the UFO lady privately in a back room. And he then, rather than have Chad and I both come back, they only asked me that. And they left Chad sitting there with these strangers and all their camera equipment in the waiting room. When I got back there in the exam room, this is a very attractive, middle-aged doctor, very soft-spoken, gentle man. He asked me to sit up on the exam table. UFO lady has never left the room. She's still sitting in there like she's my family. The doctor squatted down to, to me, he was just trying to be polite. And he squatted down rather than stand above me. And when he squatted down, like he would do like you do a child, he basically asked me a couple of questions, and then his hand started up my arm, starting from my hand past my wrist, and moved up my arm, and by the time he got to this, what I call an unknown, everyone else calls implant, I call it an unknown. By the time his hand got to that area, I remember him recoiling back as if something happened to him. Now, he changed. This is so insane to repeat this. He changed instantly. I knew it. Telepathically, I knew this doctor was changed. I knew something terrified him. I knew something had happened to him and that he wasn't going to deal with me. Now, I just knew it. Well,
it must have, scared him.
I had no idea how right I was because this is just, lots of people have touched this object since, and nobody has responded the way this medical doctor responded. But this is what happened. He essentially, he wanted away from me, as if I was contagious. And I used to work in the medical world. I've known many. I actually worked in radiology 1,000,000 years ago for some very fine doctors. They don't act like this. So I get back there to get that x-ray, and I'm telling you that the woman, this little country radiology tech, started becoming very concerned because the doctor is nowhere around. It's like he's gone, like he's disappeared. She just wants to get this picture, and they want me gone. Well, it didn't want to take a picture. Trying to speed this up for you, it took 3 times before it would allow an x-ray. The first 2 times, they got a perfect view of my arm, a skeletal arm, with nothing there. But it was no way it could be denied because it's right underneath the top layer of skin. It was standing out.
Yeah, it could be felt.
Yeah, absolutely. She could see it.
Right.
And it's hard. It feels like metal. And she was flipping out. And I finally had to tell the heavens. I had to basically say, give a dog a bone. Give me a break. I've got whatever is going on here, I've got allowed this to take a picture. So it finally took the X-ray. They hustled me out of there. They refused my money. I was trying to pay for this. They didn't want my money. They just wanted Chad and I to go. We leave there in short order just to wind this up about this insanity over these X-rays. I had to get the X-ray for the most famous doctor in the whole world over these, what they call implants. He has just recently passed. His name is Dr. Roger Lear. Dr. Lear is in California. I learned about him because he wrote a book about removing these implants out of people who claim they've been abducted. Dr. Lear is the reason why I had to do this. So I get Dr. Lear sent this original X-ray. Dr. Lear emails me and tells me that I got to get a second X-ray. And so I tell Chad, we got to go back because this original doctor knows what this is about. And I got to get a second picture or Dr. Lear won't work with us, Chad. I have to do it. Chad's saying, that's not a good idea. That doctor's scared. And I said, I don't care, Chad. I've got to do it. Now, what I'm admitting to now, I swear I would never do again. I am not about trying to frighten anybody. We were trying to get help, and I was willing to do whatever almost I had to do. So Chad doesn't want to, but he agrees to call the doctor and make arrangements for me to come back in to get a second X-ray. The doctor told his staff, whoever answers his phone, to tell Chad that he was out of the country. Now I'm pissed. I don't know if I can say that on your show. I'm livid. I'm embarrassed. I'm angry. And
Eric has you
I'm
beat. I'm
sorry?
Eric has you beat on the needing to be censored.
Okay. Right. Well, so I just, I very clearly made it clear to Chad. I said, I'm going to show this doctor how to do a peaceful Indian sit-in. I said, we're going back, Chad. And I said, I'll sit there until hell freezes over. I said, he'll have to remove me. Now, again, that's insanity. I'd never act like this again. But I was desperate.
We were new to all this, never has been...
With no help.
With any,
No support.
No support, we knew nothing of this environment, the
way it operates.
The way this all operates, right.
So we get to... I keep just jumping back in just to finish it about these doctors. Yeah, the who's who in this field. I contacted this UFO woman that arranged this originally. She happens to live about an hour and a half away from the doctor as well. So she's pissed and embarrassed, and she says, I'll meet you at his office. And I'm like, well, so be it. I'm not asking you to do that, but I said, I'm letting you know I'm going. So she shows up. So now it's her and I and Chad. And essentially the end of that story with a period at the end of it is that doctor hid from us for close to 8 hours. He made us wait in his waiting room, hiding. And then finally, when he saw that I was not leaving, Chad went out and took a nap out in the parking lot, out in the truck. So finally, Chad's good and rested, and, we're ready for supper, and I just need an X-ray. So he comes back in, and, doctor very angrily ushers me back to get the X-ray. Once again, it would not take a picture. That doctor was so happy because he's positive this mess is over with. And in a very joyous state, he comes bouncing in the room saying, it's over, nothing's there, and this thing is sticking out of my arm. And I said, then, doctor, what is this? And I'm pointing at it. He can't deny what he's seen. And he pulls out a black Sharpie pen out of his pocket, and he's really pissed, and he's got fire flying out of his eyes, and nobody wants to go through this. As he moves towards me, now, I've never heard of any other so-called abductee or anybody else ever been treated this way or ever gone through anything like this. So I sound like a real wackadoo. But the fact is, this did happen. And I went back. He drew a bullseye on my arm, and when he did that, I felt I've said in the past, I felt raped. I felt molested. I went back into the X-ray room. Something out there decided I'd had enough, and it allowed a picture. They took $100 from me this time and gave me that second X-ray, and life goes on. Nobody was interested in working with us. But I'll also mention to you, and thank you for asking about these, what others are calling implants. What I always felt was if I went through the trauma of having this removed, whatever or whoever has put this here, what's to say that they're not going to put it back?
Right.
So that always, it frightened me. And lo and behold, I have not had it removed, and I've been taken out of my bed and had another experience where I have another object that's in my wrist. So I've got 2 that I know for a fact are in one arm. There's no telling what else. Right.
So the first implant, was that actually caused by the taking at Charlie's there? I'm trying to think of the name.
Checkpoint Charlie.
Checkpoint Charlie's.
Checkpoint Charlie's, right. The next morning when I came to, as I said, it was an hour. I went through a lot of trauma over this object. In the meantime, as I'm coming out of the bathroom going through the trauma, Chad is waking up. Chad kind of staggers into, he's not falling down staggering, but he's clearly confused as he walks into the living room, and he can see in my face and I can see in his face. We're both looking for each other to explain what the hell happened to us. I'm rubbing my arm. Chad is now aware I can't tell him nothing, and he can't tell me. In the meantime, he's moved behind me. Well, I'm too busy with, as I've said before, the trauma in front of me. I haven't taken the time yet to check my body out any further. Chad sees, and I'll have Chad describe to you what he saw when he walked around me.
Well, it was almost as if somebody was either holding her up or holding her from behind. There were bruises around her upper arm.
They were hand bruises.
They were like, fingerprints.
And they were very extra long, and there were only 4 digits.
Yeah, they wrapped all the way around her arm.
Wow.
And you don't remember at any time anyone doing that to you or anything?
Not at all, because the memory that I have of the in-between, as I said, I'm the only one that appears to have the object, but who knows? But I'm also the only one that appears to have memory of that night. Because Jacqueline clearly had none and Chad had none. And
now, were they bruises or were they just
marks?
They were handprint bruises that only lasted about a day or so.
Did they hurt when you touched them? Like a normal bruise would hurt?
No, not at all. In fact, I'll tell you, since you've asked about hurt, nothing has hurt me physically. I've sent photos also of lots of cuts. I would wake up with red dots on my leg in a pattern. I would wake up with cuts and scrapes that clearly should have had blood and some pain, some kind of soreness. Never. I'd go to sleep at night. I'd wake up to this the next day, and I've discovered that's not uncommon among many of us who are having experiences. But I will tell you this. The hurt part of this is in broad daylight, when this was happening to me with the cuts and the dots on my leg, one morning, Chad and I are out in my backyard, and it's morning time. It's a beautiful morning. I'm standing in the doorway with the French doors open. Chad's sitting a couple feet in front of me in a lawn chair, and we're having coffee. And we're just really enjoying the atmosphere around us when out of nowhere, a pain that I don't know how to describe, but I mean it trust me, a pain that attacked my left foot, that I let out a scream that sent Chad flying out of the chair, coffee flying everywhere. And I mean, I let out what I call a girl scream, like I had never done before. It was blood-curdling, and what we both expected was to look down and see nothing but blood, because I'm a bleeder, flowing, and at least redness and whatever. We sent you a picture. There's a perfect triangle or pyramid that was excised out of the top of my foot, and it hurt unbelievable. And we took a picture of that instantly, happened to have the camera right there, and we photographed that, and you'll see if you have that photo, there is no redness, and there's absolutely no blood. And then tremendous strangeness happened after that took place.
It's like almost a sample was taken out of your foot.
I mean, well, then let me tell you, when you think sample, just because you're so cute to bring that up, I just so appreciate, hearing that.
That's just what I would think. I mean, I would automatically think that like something was taking a sample out of your skin, your DNA, to kind of analyze it. You know what I mean?
But then next thing you know, our next door neighbor, we live in small town Alabama. We had woods, a border of woods that divided us from our next door neighbor's front door, so that had kept us the privacy. All of a sudden, when this happens to my foot, within no time, and I mean days again, this man next door moves. He takes those woods out, so he's got perfect opening to the front view of our front yard, and we to him. And then the next thing we know, now this is a country man, old country man. He's got a lot of land in his backyard in these woods, lots of land back there. He chooses his front yard right in view of us to put in a pyramid-shaped pond. Now this pond isn't just a little goldfish pond. It's big enough to float a freaking boat and fish. He stocks it. Now, it's like something out there is pointing and laughing constantly.
How odd.
I mean, it's mind-blowing to me. Just when I think I understood something, they mix it up. If you're interested, Chad has an amazing tale of, that night the three of us came off that corner.
Definitely, Chad. We'd love to hear it.
You there, Chad?
Well, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm here.
Chad!
Sorry, I was sitting back relaxed. I had to unfold. Yeah.
He had regression.
When, like Al was saying, the last memory I had was, standing there on that, or sitting there on that stoop. When I had my regression done a few years, I guess it was in like 02, 03, something like that, I went, and the last thing I remember was, right there on that stoop. And out of my regression, I remember seeing this bright light kind of coming through the building back behind Checkpoint Charlie's there. It was probably like an old, Five and Dime or something like that kind of store, because it had these big, huge plate glass windows. And, they had the backdrop back there, but you could really kind of see, up above the backdrop to the front of the building. Plus, I could see this light coming from around the corner also. So you had all this kind of bright light coming through this building and around this building. I get the girl's attention, and we walk around the corner, over towards Frenchman. We get around the corner, and we see this orb. I would say it was probably about 12 foot in diameter. It was probably about 15 foot off the ground.
Orb of light.
And it was this orb of light, and it was this bright, just very white, clean light. We stood there, and, about the time that we kind of grasped what we were seeing, it kind of came towards us and engulfed us. And when I say engulfed us, it just kind of enveloped us. My next memory is I'm walking down this corridor. All the walls are very metallic, but no rivets, no bolts, very smooth. It's kind of leaning, turning towards the right. On my left-hand side, I could preferably see a tall blonde female. This describes our friend Jacqueline. I didn't turn to see if it was Jacqueline, but anyway. In front of us is this very short being, and I would say he's probably about 3 foot tall. He's got this pale gray skin. He's wearing this black kind of one-piece jumpsuit, very, very glovey feeling, or very tight to the skin. He had substance to him. When I say that, he's not like the grays that you see on TV, the real thin. He had substance to him. He kind of waddled. He was more like a dwarfish, or he was dwarfish. He kind of waddled a little bit. I only saw him from behind. My next memory is I'm in this room, and it just seemed infinite. Just seemed like there were no walls. It was dark. I couldn't tell how big this room was. Off to the left, I could see a tall blonde female laying on an examining table. She was nude, but I couldn't see body parts. She was censored from head to toe, kind of like what they do on TV when they don't want you to see stuff.
Chad,
there were three
scared
things.
at all during, did you know if you, had fear in you or anything?
I was never in fear. I was able to think on my own. I didn't feel like I was drugged or, in some kind of hypnotic state or anything. But no, I was never nervous, never anxious, and I'm an anxious person. I get real nervous real easy. So
I think for me, I would be like, where's the door? Get me out of here. I should not be here.
I got a question, too, for you, Chad. How was it like actually standing? If you're on a craft, one would think that you were weightless. Was there any weightless feeling, or was it like your feet were solid to the floor? Was the floor made of substance? Did it feel like you were solidly planted on the floor?
Yeah, I don't remember stumbling or feeling lightheaded or anything. I felt fine. Now,
did you actually move around the craft, or was it just almost like somebody changing the pages of what you remember?
I remember clearly walking down this hallway in the very beginning. In this corridor.
Yeah, he actually, if I could jump in, Chad actually, because I heard his regression tape, he actually says in the beginning that he's gently leaning to the right as he's walking in the corridor. These are his words, gently leading to the right. And Chad doesn't talk like that.
Huh, how odd. Now, were you ever talked to by any of these beings that were around you?
Well, I never had any kind of conversation with the little short guy or these tall beings. But my next memory is I turned to the right of me.
Could you describe him? I don't think Chad had a chance to describe to you, but there were very, very tall beings around this naked, what he thinks might have been Jacqueline.
Yeah, there were three very tall beings around her.
That he described kind of praying mantis-y looking.
But when I turn over to the right, I look over and there's this little blue being. And when I say blue, he was this vibrant, just live electric blue.
And I think you tried to draw that or have someone draw that, and I think we have the pictures. Do we have those pictures on
those pictures are up on Facebook.
On our show page, just for our listeners to reference on Into the Unknown Realm if you type that in. Go ahead, Chad, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The blue one that looks like it's kind of done with crayon, that's me. The other one is one I picked up at it was a UFO conference up in Tennessee where
hello?
Anyway, Travis Walton was. It was an artist resident. Anyway, but this blue being, he goes over and he picks up this box and he has it in his right hand. He takes his left hand and he puts it into the side of the box. And when he pulls his hand out, there's this substance that looks kind of like either like a silly putty or that slimy stuff that the kids play with, And
slime.
it was kind of almost clear. You could almost see through it, but it was kind of blue, and it had these little sparkly, glittery-looking things around it, in it. And,
did you touch it?
Never touched it. He sits the box down, and he takes his other hand. Now, he's only got 4 digits on each hand. He takes his other hand, and he puts 2 fingers up and 2 fingers crossed in, almost like you see depictions of Christ or Buddha or whatever, when they have a couple of fingers up. And he's got it like this, and when he has his hands up, this substance starts spinning. And after that it spun, the blueness and the sparkly stuff kind of dissipated out of it, kind of rotating around it. It starts slowing down, and it turned into this double-pointed clear crystal pyramid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's just very cut, very clean, very clear. I remember thinking, why are you showing this to me? I'm not a scientist. Yeah. I'm not an engineer. This is something, crazy. This is. So he tells me that I will know in time, or when it's time.
So do you think you know now, after some time has passed, what that was?
Not yet.
Have you done any research regarding it?
I think once I move past a couple more hurdles and start opening up a little bit more, I could probably find a little more of what this could mean.
He's almost at the end of this regression, and then as soon as he finishes, I'd like to interject something off of these beings that he's encountered out there, and my memory of what I encountered. Go ahead, Chad, and finish that.
Yeah, my next memory is I'm in this room, and there's 3 walls, 2 very straight, 1 that's kind of concave. Again, the walls are very metallic, very smooth, no rivets, no bolts or anything. There's this big overstuffed leather chair in the middle of the room. I remember thinking to myself, it looks comfortable, but it's not. How I knew it wasn't comfortable, I'm not sure. I focused my attention to this wall that's kind of concave. When I walk a little closer to it, I get about 5-6 foot away from it, and I realize I can see through it. What I thought was this solid, gray, metallic wall I could see through it. And there were stars and planets, and, I could see outer space, as if, I'm in some kind of a ship or observatory or something, I don't know. I'm sitting there and kind of in awe, and all of a sudden from the left, this little craft swim that speeds past, just right outside this wall or this window or whatever it is. It gets about 8-9 foot away, it stops, and it comes back. And it's kind of hovering right outside where I'm standing. And it's almost like it did a double take.
It's like, what the?
Yeah, look at the little monkey in the window, Mom.
So why do you think that these beings actually took you aboard their craft?
I don't know. I wish I could answer that. That would solve a lot of stuff.
I've always found it interesting also that they didn't take me on the craft. I'm not a part of his regression. And in my memory, Chad and Jacqueline aren't with me. I'm separated away from them. I'm actually standing on a crater. And what I wanted to interject off of Chad sharing with you his encounters, what he believes happened to him out on a craft out in the universe with what possibly are 4 different types of beings, none of his beings are the being that I was with. I was with female, but humanoid, long blonde hair. People want to call her a Nordic. Again, I'll leave people to label whatever they care to. These experiences are so mind-blowing, boggling, amazing that English language is very difficult to apply to the emotions and the experiences. But the point is that she was very human-looking with human-looking body parts. Perfect, I might add. She was perfect. And here's Chad describing being with a blue being that's got 4-digit long fingers, and yet I'm the one who comes to the next day with these 4 long-digit handprints around both my arms. It's very bizarre. Like it's not strange enough.
Right.
If I may also...
Oh, go ahead. I was going to just ask you real quick, do you think you were actually standing on the crater on this planet or on a different planet?
Right. So, my truth tells me that I'm clueless. What I know are my possibilities are that I was either on another planet or I was on the distant past of this planet or I was on the distant future of this planet.
Very interesting.
It was my experience was in all shades of grays and black and silver and blonde and some white. There was no other color. So the crater that I'm standing on, the edge of the crater, and the surroundings that I could see were all in hues of, the colors that I described to you. And it looked like, pictures that you've been shown of the moon, the way supposedly, although I know different now, but supposedly the way the moon looks. That looked like what I was standing on.
Right.
But I feel that I've been blessed enough for my own sake with this insanity to not come to any conclusions without knowing, and I don't know. If I may, though, again, I know I'm doing an awful lot of talking, but, we speak on behalf of Jacqueline. We're still friends with Jacqueline all these years later. She's had quite an amazing life since this experience, but she has given us permission to speak on her behalf of that night in particular, as well as she's given it to us in writing. She knows that we've written a book about this experience, and, that's an edit now of our 23 years of high strangeness, Chad and I. But essentially, Jacqueline, again, collectively, we all remember around 11-ish, all seem to have fairly the same memory, although Jacqueline states in her writing that she really doesn't remember even being in the French Quarter that night. She's kind of foggy. Right. It's like her fogginess starts
way before your guys'. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did she... I'm sorry. I was just going to say, did she seem like when you guys can remember up to 11, and obviously she was with you, did she seem...
herself?
Right. Strange in any way, like almost like she wasn't there?
No, we were all very checked in, all three of us. We were all communicating. We were all admitting this is weird. We were all very checked in. I will say this, though. I find all of it fascinating. I don't know. I don't want to bore any of you, but again, we love your questions. We love questions. It helps us so much, with recall and reliving this. That very last experience there at Checkpoint Charlie's, that was the name of that last little club that we sent you the photo of.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Checkpoint Charlie's is just a local dive a dive. But what's interesting about this dive is that this is where all the famous. Chad and I neither one of us are into celebrity at all. Our experiences are so mind-blowing that we've just kind of gone beyond all of that human sort of thing, but we appreciate everything. So this little club is where the celebrity would play for free when they'd roll in through the quarter or, into New Orleans, and they just wanted to be kind of incognito as if they could. And then people such as, I just lost his name, Lenny Kravitz, if you know who I'm speaking about, he lives in the quarter, and, part-time or what have you. So, folks like this, whatever, would play in this little dive periodically. Even when they would play in this little dive, it never had that I can ever remember. Now, I didn't live at this place, but the times that we were there, it never had a doorman. So my point is, on this crazy night, there's a doorman at that little club, that little dive. And it just so happened that little doorman is a cute little blonde boy that looks about the same age as Jacqueline. So it was like perfectly written that there'd be some little doorman that's never been there before at a dive when there's not a soul in this place. The door was open, and we just looked in, and I didn't even see a bartender in this place. But Jacqueline, it was like somebody out there, something, gave her a playmate for a minute, because she engaged in conversation with him and he with her, and they seemed to be getting along quite friendly. And I at least felt relief that somebody, was having a little fun this night, because it was such a weird freaking night. So, she doesn't even remember that. And again, I'm talking about... Sorry?
How odd.
Yeah. Yeah, well, any of this craziness, but she doesn't even remember that. So, but what she does know is that the next thing she does know is that she's now behind the steering wheel of her moving car. It's somewhere between 3 and 4. So she's got, from 11-ish till then, completely white clean. But I would say probably the hour and a half before that, too, she does not seem clear at all about our stroll across the French Quarter. So, anyhow, her car's moving slowly, and it hit a parked car, and it knocked off her rear view mirror. And this is what jolted her, too. Now,
can you imagine?
No. And yet,
what did I drink?
Yeah. Oh, my God. We'd give anything for it to be something that mundane, or give me some more, or how do I bother it?
Give me some.
Right. So, but on top of all of this, and I'm about to really, truly come to the end here on the Jacqueline story, the car is in a whole other section, probably over 20 miles away. Do you know how far, Chad?
Another part of town.
It's on another section of the city from where she parked it that morning. And it's also moving in the direction of this little boy that I mentioned to you, that I took the time to, probably more than you wanted to hear, to let you know about this guy that shape-shifted into a wolf in front of her face. That's where this car is going to. And she comes out of this experience. So, it's just craziness. The gift that keeps on giving.
Wow. Now, she ended up going there to his place, right?
I'm sorry, what's that, Naomi?
She ended up, from the story that I remember that I listened to, she ended up going to his place, and he was awake at the wee hours of the night. And
yeah.
I think he said something about, I've been waiting for you, or something like that, didn't he?
He either said, I've been waiting, or we've been waiting for you. But either one is creepy beyond words, because ultimately, I don't know if you heard this in an interview. We don't get a chance to say this very often, but I find it so key. I don't know to what, because we've got no answers. But the bottom line is that little boy Will, I learned in 2001. Now, remember, we were taken in 97, the three of us. So her experience with Will is like in 97. In 2000, I never saw him again after that night. But in 2001, Chad and I had a separation for about 3 months. Chad came to Alabama. I'm still in the French Quarter. Short story on that is I ran into an old friend that I hadn't seen in years. It happened to be, I'm not sure this dude's human. You know, he looked like an alien. He was 9 foot tall. I'm exaggerating. He was, I don't know, close to 7 freaking foot tall. I'm not exaggerating. Like Chad's saying, skinny as a rail, which made him look much taller. Happened to be an artist out of Montauk. Now, I don't know if that means anything to you or not, but I've discovered Montauk's a very strange place since all this stuff has been happening to us.
Montauk?
Anyhow, this guy's name, yeah, it's in New York, Montauk, or, yeah. I think it's New York. Up there somewhere closer to you than me. And I think I'm almost happy to hear it. But anyhow, this guy, Rich, his name is Rich, hadn't seen him in a few years. He and I run into each other in the French Quarter. It's afternoon and, you know, beautiful day and lots of people strolling about. We see each other. He's very sad to hear that Chad and I have had this separation. He asked me if I want to go have a drink. We go sit on a street corner, you know, like an outdoor cafe. And he actually orders a Coke, and I think I got a beer. And we're sitting there trying to do fast catch-up, and out of nowhere, this, just like I'm describing it to you, just out of nowhere, the conversation shifts, and he says, hey, did you hear what happened to Will? And I said, Will? Dark Boy? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, how do you know him? And he never, I don't remember an answer on that. But the bottom line was that out of nowhere, he brings up that Will supposedly tells everybody he's catching a bus, that he's got to leave New Orleans because the aliens are after him. Now, again, I would write a better movie, I swear. But that was the last we heard about old crazy Will. Shape-shifting, wolf-shifting, shaping Will.
Catching a greyhound to get away from the aliens.
I mean,
had to catch a greyhound. He's
a werewolf. Like a bad country
song. On a jet. Sorry.
That was my werewolf joke.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's just...
So Jacqueline must have been relieved.
You know, Jacqueline never looked back. Like I said, her life changed dramatically. She conveniently gets pregnant just within a skip of the 3 of us being taken.
Really?
And, yeah. You know, I mean, the worm turns. The story just grows and grows. And so in the meantime, you know, as Jacqueline is becoming pregnant, it's literally, we're taken in September. She's conceived in November, I think it is, something like that. Very quickly. I'll tell you this, her son is, we've only met him once. Well, we met him when he was a baby, when he was about a year old. And then we met him, she brought him to see us here in Alabama when he's about 10. He's now, I'm not good with math, 17 or 18, this happened in 97. And he's quite unusual and remarkable. Amazing. And so the reason I bring this up is that, you know, Jacqueline, announces she's pregnant within a few months of us being taken. In the meantime, I'm coming apart at the seams, truly becoming unglued. And I not only desired to leave, but I was compelled to leave Louisiana, New Orleans, the Quarter in particular. When Chad and I were really at the height of our, you know, it's very hard to make it in the Quarter, and it's expensive. So you either move there with a lot of money, or you come from old money, or you better be good at what you do. And he and I were just very fortunate in that regards to be good at what we did. And we were just starting to really find our way. And all of a sudden, What's that?
Get our groove on.
Oh, okay. Chad's saying get our groove on. And, you know, all of a sudden I've got to throw a wrench in the pocket and just compelled to leave there to go to the southwest. I didn't know what crater I was standing on, and I didn't know what planet it was, but I was determined to try to find it. I was determined to try to find her.
Didn't have a rocket ship.
The being that I was with, the encounter that I experienced. I was determined to find her.
That person, that lady, you felt like was you. It was home, right? Are we talking about the same thing?
That's right.
So you felt like it was almost a part of yourself?
She represented to me the best of myself, the essence of myself. I just felt complete. You know that old "you complete me." I feel real corny right now saying that, but that's absolutely, that's what I experienced in being in her presence, and a familiarity and the essence of, again, where you lack with words, and the way
now,
that she helped.
Have you ever experienced another time with her, or like a dream, or anything besides that moment?
It may very well have been her in the other another encounter that I had after Chad and I moved to Alabama. We both end up here. He comes here first, and then I follow about 3 months later in 2001. We bought a home, small town Alabama, small lake community, bedroom community of Birmingham. We're in bed, and next thing I know, and I'm conscious, I'm standing now in my backyard, and I'm by myself. And in the very beginning of that experience, because I'm conscious, I'm like coming into consciousness, I'm aware that there's something small standing to the left of me, very close to me, and it's probably about thigh high. And the moment I try to cue in on it, like really hone in on what, first of all, I'm shocked all the, what, because 1 minute I'm in bed and next minute I'm in my backyard. And so by the time I'm getting ready to hone in on whatever this is, whatever is next to me, I hear what I think sounds, what I remember is her voice speaking to me from the heavens, from above me, in the sky, kind of, above me and to the left a little bit. And it's a melodic voice that it's not possible to duplicate it. I haven't found a way or heard it since. But anyhow, it's just the most amazing that I just want to crawl up into and be a part of this voice. And she's sounding, I can't tell you what she's saying. Not this time. It's not audible to me. I mean, it's not clear, but it feels coddling, as if it's very coddling. I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
Oh, yeah. It's like when you hear your mother's voice when you're, having the worst day of your life. And it's calming.
Probably, exactly. Again, I don't have childhood memories, little, but it's that essence of, and I think you understand what I'm saying. And so as I'm falling, not literally, but emotionally, into the coddling of this voice and the familiarity of it, that's when I'm, so in love and happy to be reunited, what I think is being reunited. Above me again, very high up into the heavens, but now to the right, a little bit to the right of me, is a male voice. And it's angry sounding, and it's harsh, and it scared the shit out of me. Sorry, but I mean that's how bad it scared me. It scared the stuffing right out of me. I felt my knees knocking, and I just wanted to crumble. And this voice there was nothing friendly about him, and he sounded like a PO'd father. And I found myself responding to that reaction, and I just wanted to, crumble. And I remember him very clearly calling me by name, and he said, Elsa, but in the nastiest tone. I mean, again, thank God, and I can have a really ugly voice, but anyhow, his words were, Elsa, don't bother being afraid. Like, scare the stuffing right out of me, but then, jump all over me because he's scaring the stuffing out of me. Like, put on your big girl panties and deal with it. It was nuts. At the point that happened, and I was going through this reaction with him, there was an explosion of light in my wrist. I mean, it was as if my wrist literally exploded in white light. It was weird. It was weird and beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful and freaky. And then the next thing I know, I'm back in bed, and it's the next morning, and I'm waking Chad up saying, Chad, I know I've got another object in my wrist now. So wow. I can't prove that, I can't prove any of that other than these objects, but I can tell you that I sensed that it was her again.
Wow. To me, it sounds like you guys are very much chosen for
a bigger event, bigger plan.
Yeah, it's like they're preparing you. I've
always once thought, because UFOs have always interested me, extraterrestrial life and all that, but it's almost like, it's just my belief, but it's almost like they pick out families or follow a person from birth to death, and that's almost what it sounds like is happening here in your case. Like with my case, my grandmother saw a UFO, my mother had a UFO encounter, and I've had a UFO encounter. So to me, I'm interested to see if my kids have one.
Wow. Right.
Almost like, and I don't think we've been taken, but just even had the experience of seeing one. And it's almost like they come around and are checking in on groups of people or certain individuals for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying earlier in the beginning of the show, I wish we had a whole lot more time because your story, you have so much more that I know of that you could tell us about, from, the men in black in the cars that came over where you guys were staying, and the Bigfoot experience, and so much stuff, but we don't have enough time for it all. I feel so bad. You guys have, all these great stories, and we are running out of time.
It's all right.
But
there's more shows.
Yep, there's more shows. We'll have to have you guys come on. Especially, you were talking about how you have a book that you guys are going to be having out that you've put to the editors or to be published, I believe you said.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And believe it or not, there's a pretty good chunk of information in the book that we've never gone public with. And we've been fairly blessed to do, a pretty good amount of radio shows. And as I said, there's a chunk in this book that we've never been public about that we're, looking forward to being able to kind of help people get a better picture.
Now, do you already have the book titled?
That it's a working title right now. It's a working title because what we're really looking forward to trying to do, to the best of my knowledge, and I've done a lot of research on this, to the best of my knowledge, Chad and I and Jacqueline are the only multiple, as they say, abductees taken out of the French Quarter. Now, there's also another story out there, and I've communicated briefly with the gentleman who has had his own experiences in New Orleans as well. But he's never, to the best of my knowledge, he's never written a book about it or what have you. But Chad and I and Jacqueline are the only that I'm aware of multiple abductees in the French Quarter. So what we're trying to do is use a lot of imagery on the cover of this book to do the speaking for the title.
There you go. So do you have an idea of when this book might be able to be out and people can get a hold of it?
That's our problem, is because we intend to do our very best to have it as professional looking and edited and photos that are possible. It's going to cost us a penny. It's costing a great deal more money than we anticipated. So it's a financial situation right now. And it's, our friend is also, he's somebody we're very close to up in New York City who is handling the editing of the book and is willing to, ride this out with us to let us try to get these finances together because we're just so desiring, that it be done right. 23 years of high school, we just want it done right. So
absolutely. And you guys have a lot of information that you need to have in there to share everything that you've gone through, and perhaps you'll even go through even after this point as well. But
absolutely, right. Well, I understand we're out of time, but if I may just kind of conclude as well, as somebody mentioned earlier, this being in the family, and I think it was you, Steve, with your grandmother and yourself and so on, these Sasquatchy experiences people call Bigfoot, I find just as fascinating because I wasn't interested in any of this prior to this happening to us directly. But Chad's father, an adult brother, has had up close and personal Bigfoot encounter, and then I and another witness had a UFO Sasquatchy encounter. So the high strangeness of all of this is, and running in the families, is something that I don't feel can be denied. And we're so grateful to you all for being open to us and allowing us to have this has been a wonderful time for me, and I know for Chad. And he's over here nodding his head, but he really can't see.
But it's almost been, to me, it's like you got to sort of think, is everything tied in together?
Right, everything connected.
Right, from the paranormal to the Bigfoots to the UFOs. Is it all part of the same, happenings, I guess?
Connecting into one,
all
thing,
part
definitely.
Of the unknown realm.
It's the other half of normal.
The other half of normal.
Exactly.
Well, that's what we like to dive into, the unknown realm. So
absolutely. So when you guys do get your book and you know when it's going to come out and it's going to be on the shelves, if you guys could do us a favor and contact us again and let us know. You can even post it on our show page, and then that way people can read it. Also, I know if anybody wants to do a little research on you folks and some of your other interviews that you've had or articles, you can put into the search engine the name, your guys' name to bring it up. There's a lot of great information for our listeners if they want to get a little more than what we were able to put on here, because there's definitely more stories I know of that we weren't able to get to. And
I think that's a perfect name, The High Strangeness.
Yes, definitely.
Personally, that's what your book should be called.
Yes, actually, I think Steve has a great point.
Yeah, we've really rolled that around. That certainly has been at the top of our list. So yeah, we're all about all of it, and we just can't thank any. I mean, it's just saying thanks to you guys is just a simple word, but we're just both extremely grateful to all of you. And because I can remember, I'll just kind of say this very quickly, many years ago when I was seeking folks out there in the media world and the radio world that were researchers, calling themselves researchers and so on, and had these groups. What I discovered is as soon as they discovered, for instance, ghosty groups, as soon as they discovered that we were involved with Sasquatchies and UFOs and beings and, lizard monkeys here in Alabama, oh, my God, we've got the craziest stories. As soon as, I shared this, these folks just, bless their hearts, it wasn't their ghost group or it wasn't their Bigfoot group. And we're just so grateful to you to be open to all of this. And we thank you because it's happening. All of it's happening to us.
I always am thrilled to hear about stuff that I don't know about, to learn more about stuff that it's things that I have not experienced. And just to get knowledge about that stuff I think it's priceless. So I'm definitely grateful that you guys reached out to us to be on our show. And thank you for sharing your stories with us. I wish I know we could do at least one more hour worth. But definitely for reaching out. Thank you for reaching out with us, and hopefully someday we'll be able to meet you in person.
We're going to do it. We absolutely are determined. We're heading your direction. Give you heads up, and thanks again to all of you for being so kind to us. And we look forward to meeting. We'll get books sent to you as soon as we get our hands on it. We'll let you know.
We love that.
Say, listen, if we may just also add real quick, we've got Facebook, Chad Dillard Facebook, and also we have an arts page. We create a wearable art. It's Unique Rabbit Shawl.
And they're beautiful.
Thank you, UNEEK. From what I understand, we're the only ones in the world doing that as well. So please check us out, and thanks again for everything. And Eric, we love you. Thanks for all your help.
Not a problem.
Definitely. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for telling your story. And you guys be safe.
Thanks. Can't wait to meet everyone.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night. Cheers.
Cheers. Wow, I couldn't imagine going through the things that they've gone through. That I'm not sure how I would react to that, or so many questions that I would ask about, not questions, but I mean all the questions that I asked about, what does it sound like, what does it feel like, what was your reaction? I just couldn't imagine being in that situation. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like I would probably be frozen. Just like.
I mean, I've had some weird things happen from paranormal to UFOs, but I mean, I'd just be asking, what's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's almost like they're full spectrum.
Right.
They're getting all points of this.
Definitely.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely crazy. Well, we want to thank everybody for listening to us tonight. And it was a kind of a little extra long show.
That's all right, because we're gearing up for this weekend.
At Ocean State Paracon, make sure you join us.
I can't tell.
In Harrisville, Rhode Island is on Saturday and Sunday, 12 to 7 p.m. So definitely come by, say hello to us. We always love to talk to our listeners because that's awesome. And also join us next week as it will be our 1-year anniversary of.
Has it been 1 year?
Into the unknown realm.
That's craziness.
Yeah.
People have liked us that much they kept us on the air for a year.
I know. Can you imagine that?
It's because they knew I was coming.
Yep,
right.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Boats is here.
Anyway.
He said it, Steve. I'm just telling you, he said it.
And speaking of that, we'd like to thank our quiet Steve for covering the chat room for us as well. Everybody have a very safe weekend and safe week. And hopefully we will see you all come this weekend.
See ya.
Peace.